guys, good to be back with you again. So I really hope you're enjoying this journey of reading through some of the chapters of the book and then coming back and listening to these videos and seeing what you can see as well. I mean, let me know in your comments and feedback if you are enjoying this way of doing a program with me. Always good to get your feedback. So the chapters this time we were looking at are the chapters on dissatisfaction and on effortless change. So if you haven't read those ones, I think they are 7 and 8, chapters 7 and 8. Go back and read those and then come back and watch this video. So there were a couple of things that I felt, a couple of things that I wanted to share with you as I read through these chapters. So the first one was the first chapter about dissatisfaction. Now this rang so true to me because I remember sitting with George Pransky as we were doing some mentoring together, and as he sat there with me and listened to all my woes about my relationship and how it could be better, he turned around to me and he just said, "Nick, there's only one thing up with you, right? Is that you have not enough written on your eyeballs." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, everywhere you look, everything that you say, everything that you've described to me is what someone with not enough written on their eyeballs would say." And in the same way that in George talks about a mindset, right, being like a pair of glasses you put on and then look through the world through, I was walking around with, without even realizing, this is the way of like mood or mindset glasses, right? So I was walking around with these glasses on that had not enough written on them. So when I looked at my work, when I looked at my business, when I looked at my grounding, when I looked at my husband, when I looked at my children, everywhere that I was looking in life, it looked to me like not enough. So not enough intimacy, not enough closeness, not enough washing of dishes, not enough taking care of the kids, not enough hugs and kisses, not enough telling me how gorgeous I am, not enough saying I love you, not enough, clients, not enough money, not enough exercise, not enough, like I'm not. And when I looked at me, obviously I was not enough either. And I had never seen that before. And that's what George means by dissatisfaction, right? Is that we have this feeling of not enough. Now, I thought that was really cool when George pointed that out to me, because when he pointed it out to me, I took a look and I saw that it was true. And in the noticing of that, that's a shift in consciousness. You know how George talks in the second chapter that we've read about effortless change, that it always happens in a heartbeat. It's like I saw the truth in what he was pointing to. And because one of the things that I'd learned in my early part of the journey with the principles is I'd realized that I'd somehow, this is kind of a bit of an aside, but it was such an important part of the journey for me. For the first part of me bumping into the principles, I was willing to learn, but I was really convinced that my thinking was correct and right. And so I was trying to listen to everything and slot it into what it was I thought I already knew. Michael Neal at one point gave me a big talking to about humility. I didn't even know what the word meant. I had to go and look it up in the dictionary. But I realized I realized I knew nothing. I realized that I fell into an openness and a willingness to learn and willingness to hear what was being pointed out to me. And so it meant that when George pointed that out to me, "Nick, you just have not enough on your eyeballs," I was able to take that on board without getting I got a little bit defensive about it. But suddenly I saw the truth in what he was saying, because I was willing to listen and willing to be impacted and willing to see something that I didn't already know. Right? So that was kind of in place for me first to be able to see the truth in it. But as soon as I saw it, because George could have said that to me, and people probably had over the years, and I'd just gone, yeah, that sounds like a neat idea. But when George said it, I saw it. And the first stage of any shift, change of heart, as George would call it, is that we suddenly see that we have these glasses on, and there are countless examples of that through the book. Now, in the seeing of that, it changed everything. I suddenly had so much compassion for my husband, because I realized, my goodness, what is it like living on the other side of that, where nothing you do is good enough, where you can never give enough, you can never love enough, you can never parent well enough, you can never do anything well enough in my wife's eyes, right? That was the experience my husband was living in. And so no wonder he would get defensive and grumpy and irritable and all the rest of it. My God, imagine living on the other end of not enough, right? With the full force of that coming at you in your marriage. And so in the noticing of it, it changed, it shifted immeasurably. And it's made such a difference to my husband. I came home from that trip to Lacona visiting George, and I came home and those glasses had come off, and all of a sudden I was hit by the kindness that I saw in front of me. I saw how beautifully he parented. I saw how kind he was to everyone in the family. I saw how he continually put our needs before his own. I saw all this, and my husband hadn't changed at all. He didn't even know I was having this conversation with George. And yet I walked back through the door and there was a different man waiting there. Different goggles, different person. Now that to me was so huge, to realize that my experience of my husband himself, that's when I really saw that no, it always works inside out. I left for Lacona. I had a husband who was not enough. I came back from Lacona and I had a husband who was the kindest, most enough, perfect partner for me ever. And nothing had changed apart from my shift in understanding, right? That was huge, such massive evidence to me about how the reality is created from the inside out. And that was so cool to see. And then as the years have gone by, what I've seen is that I thought that was a Nick thing, right? I thought, oh, I have a tendency, there's something I do when I get caught up in insecure thought, is I put on my not enough glasses and then I start looking around the world and then acting as if what I see is true, right? That's just one of the ways I take myself out of the game of life. But then as I started to explore the ideas behind non-duality, right, I started to look at this and see that, oh yeah, it's all thought, and so are we. I started to see that, no, we all live our unquestioned idea of who we are, our personal mind, our little me that thinks it scurries around in the world, right? When we think that this is who we are, this mistaken identity, this sense of self that we have as a accumulation of our body, our thoughts and our ideas, and we say, no, this is me, has built into it the idea of separation. This thing that thinks it's me says, here's me, this is not. This is me, this is other. This is me, this is my husband. This is me, this is a pen, right? Separation, 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 created all through thought, right? Every single one of us. But this concept, this idea into this space of a separate me, comes firstly a separate me and a separate other that now has to be contended with. But also through this comes the thought. The ego creates another name for this separate self, right? The ego creates the concept of time. And into that concept of time comes a thought of a different future, a better future that's different from the one that's here now. So there's a now and there's a future, and there's an idea of future that's better than what exists right now in this moment. That is not a Nick thing. That is a human mistaken identity thing. That's where we all live, in that space when we forget who we really are and get confused and think we are this separate identity, wondering this. We get caught up in our humanness and we forget the beingness that we actually are. So if all this is sounding a bit woo-woo and over your head, what I realized when I was reflecting on this, no, this isn't a Nick thing. This is a real mistaken identity thing. So for as long as we think that this is who we are, that I am my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my body, my brain, that is what and who I am, we're continually going to be caught with the not enough goggles on. And that's fine. That's just the way of it. Nothing, it comes built in to the forgetting of who we are. But as we're in this conversation, looking towards the principles and an understanding of the principles, as we get a sense of the oneness behind the source of all life that Sid saw, that he points to with all his work, that people have pointed to through every non-duality teacher, every wise teacher through the years, Eckhart Tolle, Sydney Banks, all of them point to this source behind life, the only thing that really is the creator of all experience, of all life, the being that comes before the humanness. That's who we really are. And in that space, there is no division between self and other. There's only one. In that space, there is no future that can be compared to a now. There is no time. There is no separate me and separate other. There is no, this is before thought, before any separation has occurred. And so I guess what I'm saying here is that, yes, we get caught up in dissatisfaction. Yes, we think that not enough. Yes, we see, I wish this could be different. I think that could change. And that's, if we know that that's just what humans do, then we get less inclined to try and change the thing that looks like it needs to be changed, right? Because we're now suspicious of that one. And we get less caught up in trying to change our dissatisfied thinking into happy, positive thinking, smiley thinking, trying to put a nice light on it, find the silver lining, get positive thinking, tell myself it's just my... Like, we don't have to do anything with this amazing gift of thought we've been given. If we understand how it works, that the human will always arise with wanting and need and separation and dissatisfaction, then we kind of get to be, there's a sense of peace that arises with that human experience. We're just humaning again. Nothing to do, nothing to change, but good to understand how it works. And somehow that changes our relationship with our wanting things to be different than they are. So I'm going in a little bit deep there. I wasn't sure, I didn't know I was even going to go in that direction, but there's so many different levels at which to read this book. And this, what I'm just talking about here, is not in the book, right? This is what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to read the book and see what comes up through you. What do you realize as you are reading the book? Not like, oh, I really like the idea where he said we don't have to be dissatisfied, but as you are reading the book, what comes up that's new, fresh, and is not in the book for you? Now, the other final thing that I wanted to point to in the book, and I was reading the book, I've read this book a million times, feels like, and I'm reading it because I'm doing this video for you, and I love it sometimes that I'm just reading, I'm kind of just reading as I normally do, and all of a sudden there's a sentence that I've never seen before and it makes me cry. Right? And it was this sentence here. It's going to make me cry now even talking about it, right? It's George is talking about, and I can't remember his name, but there's a child, a 16-year-old that he's coaching that's very reluctant to be coached, right? A juvenile delinquent. And there's one sentence, and he said, George explained, I'm just going to read it out. George explained to the boy that he had feelings of happiness and goodwill inside him, feelings that made his life worthwhile. And to me, that just made me cry, right? So I don't want to pick it to pieces too much. I love just sitting with that insight. We'll let it unfold. But for what it's worth, what that hit me with is, oh my goodness, it's as simple as that. It's like we have these feelings of happiness and goodwill, no matter what. Whether you're 16 or 95, whether you're a juvenile delinquent or a housewife, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're in prison, whether you're starving, whether you're in a violent relationship, whether you are a millionaire, whether you are a homeless person, no matter what, we all have these feelings of happiness and goodwill inside of us, and that is what makes life worthwhile. Not the money, not the husband, not the relationship, not the children, not the having the right house, not having the right job, not having people think about us in a certain way, nothing outside of us It's never found outside of us ourselves. That feeling of happiness. This is what happens when you have an insight. You just keep repeating the same words. But no, but really, that feeling of happiness and goodwill, that feeling of being filled up with love, regardless, irrespective of what's going on in our lives, irrespective of what our partners are up to. If we don't know that, we're forever condemned to try and change things in the outside world or resent things in the outside world, because we think that unless they change, we can't have happiness and goodwill. And it's not true. That's the starting place. I shouldn't even create a video on this. I'm just like mind blown because I've literally just put the book down, and that's shifted something profound for me in the reading of that sentence. I don't know what. I'll check back in and let you know. I love it that we can be touched at any moment, most unexpectedly, by this conversation in profound ways that will change our lives forever. In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I know this, whatever it is I've just seen, my relationship with my husband will never be the same again as a result of that insight. And that's how quickly it can happen. And I've been married for, God, more years than I can remember. 17 years, 18 years? Well, I can't remember. 19 years maybe. 19 years of my relationship, and then in a heartbeat that can change through one insight, one sentence in a book, that profound shift inside. I love it that we get to have this conversation together. It's so cool. Anyway, I'd love to hear what came up for you as you were reading the book. And there can be a tendency, I think you can mishear what I'm saying and take it as a prescription to read the book and then look for what's new. Read the book, look for what's new, and it's better sound clever, and it better sound like something you could create a video about. And I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, like, read the book, be open to being impacted and touched by whatever moves through you as you reflect on the chapters that you've read. And if you feel moved to share, I would love to hear what you see. Okay. Until next week.